Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. And today I'm gonna get it right, guys. I'm gonna get it right one of these days. Today we're going to be talking about a very important topic, and that is going to be homeschooling and daycare. Now, this series is a series of topics talking about different aspects of homeschooling. And if you're interested in how to homeschool, and that's why you're here, please go and check out my Patreon. I give step-by-step details on the basics, the things that you need to know, the things that you need to have in order to continue, or start, in order to unschool or prep your child for higher learning. Please go and check out my Patreon and sign up for that if that is something that you're interested in. If you are new to this topic and new to the concept of homeschooling and you're curious about what's the big deal, right? Why do I feel like this is a good idea? Why do I feel like it's a good idea? Maybe why do you feel like it's a good idea, but you're not finding the words and the verbiage to actually talk about how you feel. First of all, let me just come and just reassure you that you're not crazy. This is totally normal. And it is, of course, actually one of the ways that it was the traditional way of taking care of children before the Industrial Revolution came about and women started to go to work for all of the reasons that, I don't have to repeat because you might have a little bit of understanding of the history yourself, but I want you to be very aware. We're going to talk first about awareness. The awareness of how important it is for a child to be with their mom at the beginning of their lives, their first formative years of their lives. And this is a huge thing for me because I opted for daycare in the beginning. I opted for kindergarten. Then my daughter happily went to at 3 years old. And by the time she was 5, it was a nightmare. She came to me and asked me for her to be homeschooled after just 2 short years of being in the school system. And looking back then compared to how it is now, I understand that this is something that is extremely important to pay attention to if you're feeling that your child is stressed out. Infant stress signals are becoming higher and higher up on the rise. And a large part of that is this need for children to find someone to attach to and not being able to do that with the person who they should be attaching to, which is the mom, mom and dad, but mostly mom. And this is something that is extremely important to recognize. And I know a lot of people are going to come and say, look, I have to work. That leads me to my second point, which is values. Like, what do you actually value? Because coming out of corporate, I had to get used to a very different kind of life when I decided to stay home. That meant now I'm married. Okay, I was a single mother with my first daughter, and that was a choice that I made, openly understanding what the difficulties and what the financial challenges were going to be. And that's why, of course, my daughter had to go to daycare. Now, I did not have to work actually for the first 3 to 5 years of her life, but I chose to because I felt like that was just something that society was pushing. And my values at that time aligned with that mentality. I valued work, I valued my independence, I valued having my own money over the feeling and need to have a family. And if you feel like your career and your education, and I understand y'all know that I'm for education, I feel like more people need to have an understanding of who they are and what path they are going in, and getting your education is a very important part of that. But when you have a child, you don't get those years back once they're gone. And those years might seem like forever if you cannot understand the value of being present 100% with your child at the first 5 years of their life, at least 5 years. And when I look back at some of the decisions that I made in terms of like following my career and going along the path of school and study, which by the way, I was not able to finish because this is the decision that women have to make, that have consequences, that have lifelong consequences, is that once you become a mother, you are then having to always put in perspective what are some of the more important things for your child long term. And I'm not going to knock or discredit or put anyone down and say, oh, you made a bad choice because you decided to go for your career instead of staying at home with your mom, with staying at home with your child. But values, family values, instilling those family values like trust, care, and security are extremely important for a child's development. And I could get into that, but I'm not going to because I feel like there's enough material out there. Maybe I will link some in the description box down below. But when a child does not have that, they spend the first 5 of your lives in a state of in the first 5 years of their lives in a state of uncertainty, and that uncertainty builds a level um of stress in them that causes strange and weird and high levels of anxiety and depression in young people. Now, this may sound very extreme, but if you look at some of the data around this particular topic, teenage depression and suicide rates, you will see that I believe that it is as a direct result of these kinds of things. Children having to go directly into an institutionalized education way too early before they're able to form proper bonds with their mothers. Financially, I know this is not even like something that people take into consideration. And this one is going to sting a little bit because I feel like when I talk about this, it's like, oh yeah, you want to support your wife and her dreams and you want to support her every, desire and vision, but not her pipe dreams. And it's just a pipe dream to think that you can stay at home with your child for the first 5 years of your life. Like we need money. We need um we need to provide for said child. We need to have educational funds set up. Now this might sting a little bit for some people. This is going to hurt a lot actually for some people, but I had to learn how to I had to learn to live with a lot less when I decided to be a stay-at-home mom. And I think that a lot of women are not willing to give up this lifestyle in order to be a stay-at-home mom because it means that you don't come home with a bag or that you have complete reliance on your husband, if you have a husband. And for those of us who are single, I understand like that's just not possible. It's just not possible for me to stay at home with my daughter or my son when I need to be able to take care of them and myself. So I'm not talking about those people. What I'm talking about is people who don't plan to stay at home, people who don't plan to stay at home with their child based on the fact that they're ill prepared financially need to start to look at that as a failure on your part. And I am one of those people. I'm not trying to talk bad about anybody. One of the things that I really wish that I had done earlier on in my parenting was to make sure that as soon as I found out that I was pregnant, to start to put aside every last cent that I had for when the baby came. And to start to look for ways and means of living on less before the pregnancy was actually, before I actually became a mother and the baby came, then just make sure that I have things that are at the end of the day put in place for myself and my child for at least the first year of life so that I don't have to be struggling and wondering about where I'm going to get money together to send to have clothes and pampers and food and rent and things like that. So I think that this is something that I wish people had talked more about. I was very lucky to actually have a lot of people in my life at the time of my first child to buffer a lot of my financial expenses. They did that willingly and gladly. My grandparents, so my daughter's great grandparents, were very supportive of me, and they were there for me for at least I think like 5 years of the first 5 years. So well, me and my daughter have had our struggles and our differences because of age. Like I had her young. I wasn't a teenage mom or anything, but I had her young and I was figuring things out as I was growing in motherhood. And I think that the while it wasn't super impaired on me, impressed on me that family values come before everything else, will not get this time back with your child. Um, it came in subconsciously that having a family was something that I ultimately wanted to work towards, and that doing that meant that I would be more physically present to my children. And I think I did a pretty good job of that. Um, Overall, there are always things that you can improve on, but overall, I think that was something that I tried to do as much as possible. But in that concept, I could feel the pressure of having to go back to work coming up on my daughter's fourth birthday. Like, she was in school, I was still kind of sort of at home, doing a little side job here and there. But I could definitely get this sense of, you need to get a job, you need to start to work, you need to make something of yourself. And that's cool because I'm a single mom, like I said, and I don't have any other option. So I started to work on my career. But I was very resistant, and this resistance came even more when I got married and had my second child. And one of the very sad things is that my husband and I have had a lot of discussion about me staying at home versus me going to work. There are lots of things that I want to do. There are lots of experiences that I want to have, but we are not able to really afford all of them all the time. And that's because that's a sacrifice with having a single income um, household. And we have seen a lot of that, a more acceptance of that staying at home with your child since the pandemic has happened. People have been pushed into a situation of having to do more with less. And so now I know for sure that it is absolutely possible. And I'm very, very optimistic about the future of parenting, especially motherhood, because that was one of the things that was extremely under attack, where you could even see parents, so partners, husbands, starting to get in on this mentality of wanting their wives to be immediately back into the workforce because they thought that it was financially necessary. And once you have that diversity, that differentiation in opinion when it comes to what people value in relationships and family, then it's going to be extremely difficult for you to think of things in another way. So, ladies, if you feel like this is something that you have been thinking about and you feel like your husband is not on board, show him this video. It could save your marriage. And that was one of the things that I feel like, the concept and the perception of your partner is very, very important. I know that I met a lot of resistance with my partner when it came to homeschooling because school is just something you do. That's just the way it is. You don't homeschool, you don't leave your child at home. The erasure of motherhood in society and the resistance that I've met with this particular topic is crazy to me. Like, people who have no invested interest in seeing my child succeed or fail have gone out of their way to actually convince me that going to school is actually better than my child staying at home. And it always begs the question of how much resistance can influence women's decisions. Like, I don't just think about myself and my own situation, but other women who are in this situation who keep on hearing that they are doing something wrong or being helicopter moms because they want to have that time with their child for the first 5 years of life. That is totally normal. And being not able to express this is a big part of the issue in society, is that we don't really get that support because we are being pushed in the direction of, you must go back to work and you must go back to work. Ladies and gentlemen, I just want to say that this time it's going to be over quicker than you know. I have an 18-year-old and it feels sometimes like I just blinked and she was 18. I'm going to let that sink in. It will be over quicker than you can think that it can be over. And once you realize that, you understand people are living longer than they used to. People are able to experience more than they were able to before. And that means that your life is going to be very, very long. If you're 30 now, you have 50 more years of life possibly because people are living longer. So Don't be worried about your career and your education and all of the other things that you wanted to do, because that first 10 years where your child is, where you are like God to them, will be gone. And then all you have is 8 years of just hopefully not too much drama and hormonal stress. Hopefully. And we'll talk about that in another segment. But once that's over, then it's over. The minute they turn 11, they have new role models, new gods, new, and I use the term gods very loosely for those of us who are religiously affiliated. But you know what I mean, people that they look up to. You are no longer immortal to them. You are just a mortal human being with flaws that they will be happy to point out to you at the drop of a dime, and that special bonding time will be over. What you do in the first 5 to 10 years of your parenting is paramount to making sure that that bond does not end up in the wrong direction, because you will spend the rest of your time unparenting or unschooling based on the signs and the cues of that child wanting to bond with you from earlier on. But because you didn't pick up on those cues, now that person is just a stranger that lives in your house. Now, I know this may seem very, um, very weird and very extreme. I'll give you an example as to how normal this concept and way of being as a teenager is. It is everywhere in social media and media. You see tons of movies with the parents who have no clue what's going on with their kid, and they are working their butts off trying to raise money to take care of that kid. But that kid is the one person they're trying to take care of is the person that is the most distant from them. Um, all right, so I think I've talked a lot about this. I'm going to divulge a little bit more. If you guys want more on this content, stay tuned. And if you can, stay safe and stay free.